Good morning. I've said many times that I'm going to always have honest conversations with the people of South Dakota, no matter how hard they might be. Today is one of those days. We've had several protests across the state of South Dakota because of what happened to George Floyd while he was in the custody of the Minneapolis police. I want to talk a little bit about what we can learn from that situation and what our path forward can be. As I said on Monday, protests have a purpose. People protest when they feel like they're not being heard. As it relates to South Dakota, the protests have had their purpose. There is no one who thinks that what happened to George Floyd was okay. Personally, I haven't even been able to make it through the video yet. It has been gut-wrenching to watch. The question before us now, today in South Dakota, is what do we want policing to look like? That's at all levels, at the city level, the state level, county level, and federal level. There's no governor in America that has trusted her people more than I have. I trusted them to make the right choices, and the last several months they have done so. There's no governor in America who is more willing to work with her people than I am, to work to find solutions to the problems that we face, to be that policing or otherwise. It's time for us to work together to problem solve. Now, the very reason that I ran for office years ago was because of what happened to my family when my dad passed away. Because of that, I got engaged in public service, ran for the legislature, represented you in Congress, and now I'm your governor. I grew up with a dad who was a cowboy who told us every single day, you don't complain about things, you fix them. Now, every step along the way throughout public service, I focused on problem solving. I came back to South Dakota because I wanted to have an even bigger impact on our state, and I wanted to be of service to the people here. Frankly, I realized when I was in Congress how little gets done at the federal level, and that the state and the local government can have a much greater impact on people's everyday lives. For example, policing is a state and a local issue. The vast majority of police officers are local, they're not federal, and the laws that they enforce are local, not federal. If we want to change the nature of policing, then we must lead on that ourselves. So let me be blunt. Public policy is complex. It's difficult. It also should be dispassionate. Passion tells us what we need to focus on, but not how we ought to do it. Our form of government is one that is intentionally designed to be thoughtful and deliberative. It is set up that way so that all voices can be heard, all issues can be weighed, and that all consequences, intentional and unintentional, can be fleshed out before we make the law. Now, I've spent a lot of time working in public policy, and the one lesson that I've learned is this, that what we need in this country, what we need in South Dakota, is more freedom and a lot more respect for each other. And while freedom and respect won't solve all of our problems, it does present a better path towards where we want to go. Freedom focuses our policies on persuasion and an intellectual strength of the positions that we have, not control or coercion or the heavy hand of government. We should never be afraid to share our views or to hear the views of other people. And if we don't like what we hear, the answer is that we share our own view or we just ignore it. We do not silence it. If someone is interested in the common good in all of its iterations and complexities, freedom is the one and only choice. That freedom, coupled with respect for those who have differing views, is a foundation on which we can build real change. Now, in America, the street doesn't settle or resolve this policing question or any other public policy question in front of us. Rather, it's hard work. We study, we review, we debate, we negotiate, and we accommodate. Then we decide what is the best action for us. City councils, county commissions, and the state legislature, they're all open for business and open for ideas. Sit down and study the laws that you have. Dispassionately evaluate what is working and what isn't working. Then contact your representatives, express your beliefs and what you want to see happen to drive the change that you want. Now, one-liners on social media are not the answer. People need to ask themselves, what are the facts? What are the consequences? And what can history teach us? Again, this process is deliberative, so we must take the time to do the hard work of looking at these things from all different angles. And one thing that I have noticed in the public discourse in America today is the immediacy of it all. Social media and the internet today have made it very easy for us to communicate with each other, instantly, in fact. That's a great tool, but it's also made it easy to communicate thoughtlessly. In the race to be heard, so many of us have given up on trying to make an argument. Instead, we compete to see who can shout the loudest. Now, America is a place where every voice deserves to be heard. Free speech is one of our most fundamental rights. I see legitimate protests raising important concerns, and I hear those concerns. But I also see violent actors who are trying to do an end run around public discourse. This is done to intimidate, and it's done to silence voices. These folks want to shortcut public debates through fear. They want to make people scared, and that is un-American. It has no place in the state of South Dakota. Now, our nation has several major issues to address. There's only so much that Congress or the president can do. However, there is a principle in this country that's called federalism. Now, our founding fathers wisely gave limited authority to the federal government, knowing that the different needs and issues of each state and community would need to be addressed differently. South Dakotans get the first chance to decide what's best for South Dakotans, and we have the responsibility to make sure that our communities are secure, that our rights are protected, and that starts here at home. This brings us to the biggest lesson that I have learned in public policy. There is no institution in this state that is more important than the family. We are blessed with great families in this state. Whatever your family looks like, make sure that it is a strong one. I say that because what took place on Sunday night in Sioux Falls, after the peaceful protest was over and concluded and people had gone home, it showed us that some of our families need a lot more attention. Parents, you need to know if your kids are out at night throwing rocks at cops. Siblings, brothers and sisters, you need to know if your family members are out looting and vandalizing businesses. And grandparents, you need to know if your grandkids are intentionally trying to destroy our way of life. Violence is never the answer. Violence will not be tolerated by me, and it should not be tolerated by you. Now, South Dakota has an opportunity to be different from every other state, but that requires us to be bold. That means that we need to respect each other. It means that we need to listen to each other, and we need to work together to make sure that we have the right path forward.